there, this is Sarah Kuhn. If you are an INFJ or in a relationship with an INFJ or related to an INFJ in any way, and you want to figure out how they operate, what makes them tick, and how to communicate with them better, this is the show for you. It's called The Quiet Ones. This is a show that deconstructs INFJs, what they are, how they think, how they feel, how they operate, and how they relate to people with other personality types. Whether you have just found out that you're an INFJ or have known for a number of years, there is something for everyone. You will learn more about your personality type so that you understand who you are and understand how you operate in the workplace, in relationships, in your family, and with friends. I want you to walk away from every episode feeling like you have a place of belonging, feeling like you are no longer alone, feeling like you have a place to be heard and seen and understood as you really are. This is a place to connect with other INFJs, to learn and grow and really thrive. I want to give you inspiration and real-life strategies that are going to help you figure out how to live your best life every single day. Though INFJs are very rare, you are not alone in this world. You are not the only one who thinks the way that you do and feels the way that you do. Hear from real INFJs just like you. Hi there, Sarah Kuhn here. Welcome to another episode of The Quiet Ones. I hope that those of you in the United States had a wonderful Thanksgiving. I had a great Thanksgiving. I spent the last 4 days alone in my apartment, just writing and writing and writing. I have so many amazing things coming up that I'm so excited to share with you guys. One of the things that I'm really excited about is this book that I'm writing. It's called The INFJ User Guide. It's such an amazing feeling to have so much to say and to just watch it pour out onto the page. If you would have asked me a year ago if I would be here doing what I'm doing now, making the plans that I'm making for this next year, I would have thought that you were completely crazy. When I first started writing my blog, it was difficult for me to write. I knew that I wanted to write, but it was a challenge. It was a challenge because it was hard opening up, but it was also difficult organizing my thoughts in order to put them down on paper. And I was scared too. Anytime that you do something new, you really have to fight that fear. One of the things that I've learned that has been such an amazing blessing this year is that the more that you do it, the easier it is. Now I'm kind of at that point where there's a lot more that I want to talk about. I love personality types, don't get me wrong. And I'm always going to keep up this blog because I know that there are so many people that benefit from it. And it's a big hobby of mine too, just reading and learning, and I love to share all of the things that I've learned. But I have some big plans for next year. I don't know that I'm ready to talk about exactly what they are right now, but I just want you to know that there are some other things coming, and yeah, I'm excited about them. I'm ready to talk about some new things and to take on some new challenges, and I'm excited to see what happens because of that. But first things first, just in case you haven't heard, I am writing a book and I'm really, really excited about it. It is available for pre-sale now and you can get it for a discounted price of only $9.95 if you buy it now. That is for an ebook as well. You can get a paperback version as well for $19.95. And you can find all of the information about it on my website, which is infjwoman.com. There's a bunch of bonuses that come along with it as well when you order it. I'm going to do a masterclass about how to find your purpose. There's also a private Facebook group for anyone who orders it, and that's where a lot of the bonuses are going to be done and available. Something else that I haven't even put on my website yet, but I know that it's happening. I'm writing an additional shorter ebook that is full of information about what to do when you get into certain situations or what to do when you feel certain ways. And it's written in a way that you could give it to somebody that you love or one of your friends or your family members or your significant other, just so that they have some advice on, what to do when you're feeling overwhelmed, what to do when you need some alone time, just different things like that. So that should be ready here in the next couple of weeks, and that will be available as soon as it's done. Then I'll send it out to everybody who pre-orders the book, and if you pre-order the book after it's done, then you'll get it right away. So that's a big project that I'm working on that I'm super excited about. Another one is I'm doing a New Year's resolutions challenge. I absolutely love New Year's resolutions. In fact, I spent this morning thinking about what my resolutions are going to be for next year and putting them all down in my journal and just really trying to flesh out a couple that I really want to focus on and just figure out what I want to do. I know that New Year's resolutions are really difficult to keep. I'm really big on resolutions, and I really haven't kept that many. Up until last year, my resolution last year was to write in my blog once a week, and I mean, I just can't, every single day, I can't even believe how it's turned out. I was just looking at the statistics for my website, and 34,000 people read my blog last month. I can't believe it. Because it was all of like 2 people in January. And for November to be that big, I mean, it's really big. And it's really kind of intimidating for me too, and kind of scary to think that many people are interested in what I have to say. And I get so many people who send me these amazing compliments and great things, and I'm so thankful for that as well. That makes all the difference in the world. You know, I just think about how my life has changed since I started my blog and my Instagram, and it's so completely amazing, and I want to be able to share those changes with you. I want you to have the same success that I've had, and even more success, hopefully. So I put together this New Year's resolution challenge to help you change those resolutions into habits and to give you some practical advice on how to make that happen. So it's an email challenge, and if you sign up for it every single day in January, I'm going to send you an email that has some short practical advice to help you form this new habit, to help you really do that thing that you want to do, and to figure out how to make it stick. So many of us just go into this new year with this great idea, and by the middle of January, if we're lucky, the beginning of February, we're done with it and it's over and that's it. And then June comes around and we're totally regretting the fact that we didn't do it. And then before you know it, the next year comes around and you're making the same resolution to do the same thing again. So the point of the challenge is to help you be able to stick with your resolution and to make it a habit so that every single day you're doing something to move forward in this new habit and to make sure that it stays a part of your life, and that will hopefully help you change your life, help you do this thing that you really want to do. Because New Year's resolutions usually aren't something simple. At least they're not for me. I usually have these really big goals. I don't want to just start exercising once a week, you know? I want to lose 100 pounds. I don't want to just start writing a blog. I want to change the world. But you can't do that if you don't write a blog post every week. And you can't lose 100 pounds if you don't start exercising probably more than once a week, honestly. So anyway, if you're interested, please sign up for it. It's completely free. And, you know, if you get a week into it and you don't like it, you can always opt out. So you can find all the information for that on my website as well, which is infjwoman.com. And I'll put a link in the show notes for it as well. Okay, so today on the show, we're going to talk about setting healthy boundaries. As INFJs, this is something that we struggle with so much. I know that I struggle with it, and I talk to a lot of people who struggle with setting boundaries as well. So I'm going to give you some practical advice on how to set boundaries and how to keep them as well. So let's start with what is a healthy boundary. A boundary is something that protects you. It's a line that you ask other people not to cross. So some examples of that would be like a center line in a highway. There's a center line in the highway or in any road really for a reason. It tells you where you can stay and where you shouldn't go as well. There's a road that's close to my house that they've been trying to repave for a long time. It rains here a lot in Boston, so for some reason they can't fix it when it's raining. So for weeks, it's just sat there because it's rained pretty much every single day for a while. And part of the problem with that is that they tore up all the old asphalt and they're waiting to put down the new asphalt. So while it's tore up, there are no lines in it. And it's kind of a free-for-all as to where you're supposed to go. And this road doesn't even have any curbs on the side. So people just kind of drive all over the place on it. And there's another road that's also pretty close that has a lot of curves in it. And for some reason, they're not tearing that road up, but it just didn't have any lines in it. I think it's just so old that they all wore off and they hadn't fixed it. And that one was even more dangerous because when you're going around curves, it's already a little bit difficult for people to stay in their lane, especially, when they're not paying that much attention or they're on their phone or, whatever they're doing. They just have a really difficult time staying in their lane. And the road is really narrow as well. So I was going around this road at nighttime and almost got hit by a couple of cars who are kind of changing lanes. And they're just sort of swerving in and out of their lanes a little bit, not really even paying that much attention or probably not even recognizing what they're doing. But then I noticed last week or 2 weeks ago maybe that they repainted the lines, and now it's a whole lot easier to go through there because you know where you're supposed to be and you know where the other car is supposed to be too. It's very, very clear because the lines are newly painted and they used reflective paint so you can see it at night as well. And there's no question about where you're supposed to be anymore. You know exactly where you're supposed to be. And you know if the person who's driving beside you isn't where they're supposed to be as well, because you can see the line. I know that was kind of a long explanation, but that's exactly what I think about when I think about setting boundaries with other people. They should be clear lines that you yourself have established and that you know where they are so that you know when other people are crossing your line. You know what's too much and they know what's too much as well. So that brings us to the next point, which is why do we need them? Well, one of the first reasons that we need them is so that you can protect yourself. You protect your energy and your well-being as well. For INFJs, we are big people pleasers. We are constantly looking at ways that we can help other people. This is one of the ways that a lot of us feel loved, is by helping other people. It's also part of our natural instincts to look at a situation and say, okay, how can I help? How does this need to be fixed? What can I do? And it's easy for us in those situations to give so much that we get worn out. We need time to recharge. Or if we don't take that time, we'll get to a point where we just have nothing left to give and we'll completely fall apart, which is emotional burnout. I'm sure that a lot of you have felt that way. I know that I have so many times, and it's not a good place to be in. So whatever we can do to protect ourselves from that, we need to do that. A lot of us have trouble setting boundaries as well. One of the first reasons that comes to mind for me is a fear of what people will think. I don't want to let people down. I don't want to disappoint them, especially when it comes to my friends or my family, when they say, I need something from you, or it could be as simple as, hey, I want to go out to dinner tonight. And you know that you're feeling like, I can't do that. I've spent so much time around people. I'm so emotionally drained. I can't do that. I need time to recharge. It could be as simple as saying, hey, I need 24 hours notice before we make dinner plans. And that's going to be something difficult, especially if your friends and family are used to just calling you and you jumping to whatever it is that they want or need. But it's necessary. But that's one of the reasons why we have trouble setting boundaries, is because we have this fear of letting people down or disappointing them. Another big thing for me is assuming that they'll be upset. I always want to jump at whatever my friends or family want. If they say, hey, I need something, I want to jump at it right away and get it done completely, because I'm afraid that they're going to be upset with me. Another reason is trying to avoid conflict. I go way out of my way to avoid conflict because I don't like it. I don't like confrontation. I don't like people being angry. and I certainly don't like them being angry with me. So when it comes time to set a boundary, that's one of those things that jumps into my mind that's like, oh, this is going to be difficult. I don't want to do it. I'll avoid doing it. And that's another reason why it's difficult for us, is because we avoid it. We want to avoid everything that's icky and messy and that's uncomfortable. Sometimes we just think that things aren't that important, or we try to make it seem like they're not that important so we don't have to do it. We also have a fear of being seen as being selfish. We give so much of ourselves that when you think about it from that perspective, it's difficult to think, wow, I really feel like I'm being selfish. But the problem is that we give so much that when we ask for something for ourselves, then we end up thinking that we're being selfish because we're so used to giving and we're not used to asking for anything for ourselves. One of the last reasons that we have trouble setting boundaries is that we don't know how. So many of us have never done it that we hear this term and this concept and we think, yeah, that sounds great. But when it comes to actually sitting down with somebody and saying, hey, I need to set a boundary here, we don't know how to do that because it's so foreign to us. A lot of these things are caused by the fact that a lot of us haven't been allowed to say no as a child. We weren't allowed to set boundaries, so we don't know how. And we continue not setting boundaries because it's what we know. It's what we're comfortable with because that's what we've always done. So even though it makes part of our life difficult, and even though it makes us feel icky at times, it feels equally weird to think about setting a boundary, to think about telling somebody no, to think about putting ourselves first rather than putting everybody else first. And like we talked about before, it's also caused by our fear of letting people down. We feel loved by doing things for other people. We like doing things for other people. We like being needed. And it's a big change for us to set boundaries and be able to stick to them because we gain so much by doing things for other people. It takes a whole shift in mindset. It takes that knowledge that we're doing so much for other people because that's how we feel loved, in order for us to feel love from inside of ourselves and to put less emphasis on feeling love from other people because we're doing things from them. It takes a big change, a big shift in your mindset to be able to set boundaries and stick to them. It's scary. It feels icky. But like I said, it's important for our health and well-being. And it will make your life a whole lot easier in the long run if you are able to conquer it and to be able to set them and stick to them as well. So I've created a worksheet to be able to help you think about what kind of boundaries that you want to set and to be able to write them down and to think about how you're going to set and enforce them as well. And there's a link in the show notes in order for you to download it. So let's talk about some of the things that we need to set boundaries around. The first one is probably one of the most important ones, which is our time. Our time is so important, and I've just noticed in the last couple of months, really, because I've been so busy with, I have a day job, I have my blog, I have this podcast, I'm writing a book now, I'm working on some things for next year as well, and eventually you just run out of time. So setting boundaries around your time is incredibly important, especially for us as INFJs, because we need so much alone time in order to recharge. It's actually really important for us as well this time of year because there's so many demands on us from different holiday parties, things with friends, family obligations. There's a lot going on this time of year. So it's a good idea to have some boundaries around your time. I had a friend a couple of years ago. Every time we talked about going out to lunch, she wanted to schedule it at least a week in advance. And at the time, I thought it was super annoying because I didn't understand boundaries and I didn't really understand respecting other people's time and space. I just thought if you were friends and you wanted to go out to lunch, you could call somebody, an hour or two beforehand and say, hey, do you want to go out to lunch today? Because that's how it had always been with my friends and my family. But for her, she always wanted to have notice. And, like I said at the time, I thought that was kind of strange. I don't understand, but I respected it because that was the way that she did things. And rather than me complaining about it, I learned that that's how she always was. And I think I even asked her about it one time, and she said that she liked to know what was going on. And part of the joy that you get from doing things like that is actually looking forward to it, which I've read in different places too, and I think it's true. At least it is for me anyway. So one of the ways that you can set boundaries around your time is to require notice when you're going to do something, like dinner or shopping, or any time that you're going out with your friends or family. So instead of calling somebody at the last minute and saying, hey, do you want to go out to lunch today? You could say, hey, do you want to go out to lunch next week? I'm available Monday, Tuesday, or Thursday. And that way you can plan for it and they can plan for it as well. Another way to set boundaries around your time is to only go out certain times of week or certain times of the month. So maybe you set up a date night for every Friday or every other Friday so that you have 2 of them planned a month at least, and you can look forward to it as well. Another way is to limit phone calls to certain times of the day. I've been one of those people who has been addicted to their phone for the longest time, and I never really saw it as a problem until the last couple of months when I've really been thinking about it a lot more. And I don't know if it's because I have a lot more things to do, or if it's because I've noticed that it's more draining for my mental health, or if it's just because I'm getting older and that kind of stuff is starting to bother me a little bit more. One of my New Year's resolutions is actually going to be setting some limits around the time that I spend on my phone, because I've also noticed that I do spend a lot of time on my phone. And it's really easy for 5 minutes to turn into 3 hours. And before you know it, you've spent all of your evening on Facebook and Instagram and Pinterest. And you haven't done anything and you haven't gained anything from it. And it doesn't really make you feel better. You either just feel the same or maybe you feel a little bit worse. So I would definitely encourage you to think about that a little bit. Also think about limiting your phone calls. There are some people that I can talk on the phone to for hours, but does it do either one of us any good if we just sit there and talk on the phone for 5 or 6 hours? Is there anything that we're gaining from that? Something else that you should definitely think about setting boundaries around is your space. I have always been incredibly particular, especially growing up, about people who were in my room. I didn't like people being in my room. I didn't like them being in my space. But I talked to some people too who said that they have problems with people coming over to their house unexpectedly. That is definitely something to set boundaries around, for sure. To let people know that, hey, just give me a heads up when you want to come over. And I know that's difficult, especially when you're talking about family or in-laws, but that's definitely something that needs to be addressed. Something else to set boundaries around is your belongings. Any woman knows that your purse is also another sacred space. So I have major boundaries around my purse too. It's not that there's anything incredibly interesting or anything in there. It's just that I don't want people going through it. So if somebody needs something, it's never, it's in my purse, go grab it. It's bring me my purse. Like if I can't get up right now or if I'm busy doing something, bring me my purse and I will get it for you. Don't go rummaging through my purse. Another thing that I have a lot of boundaries around is my phone. I don't like people looking through my phone, first of all. I don't like them touching my phone because that's another one of those germ situations where I don't want people's fingerprints on my phone or their germs on my phone. And a lot of people too, when they're looking at pictures on your phone, they'll want to take your phone out of your hands and then they want to look at the picture and then they'll start swiping through pictures. I was trying to show somebody a picture the other day on my phone. The first thing that they did was stand over my shoulder. And I told them, I was like, listen, you need to back up because I'm not showing you what's on my phone. You may not want to see it. And of course, course, he got super curious about what was on my phone, and that was a whole conversation in itself. But whatever it is that's on my phone, it's none of your business, and you don't need to be looking at it. I'm going to show you this one picture, and I'm going to hold it while I'm showing it to you. End of story. There's no swiping through my pictures. Okay, so something else that I have boundaries around is my car. I like to keep my car pretty clean. I don't like people leaving trash in my car. My older sister used to ride in my car, and every time that she did, she would leave a trail of trash behind. Whether it was a soft drink or Kleenexes or whatever it was, I would always tell her every time she left my car, take all of your stuff with you. I'm not responsible for all of your trash. Don't leave it here. And I think that's part of why I have so many boundaries now, because she would never listen and she always left a whole bunch of stuff, which I hate. So now when people ride in my car, I always make sure that they take every single thing with them. Something else that's really important to set boundaries around is your finances. This one is difficult, especially when it comes to your parents. Even when you get to be my age, which is 34 here in just a few days, for some reason, people still feel like they need to be very involved in my finances. Because I'm single and I don't really have a lot of responsibilities, I tend to spend my money in very unconventional ways. I don't live in a nice apartment. I live in a pretty small apartment, actually, and I don't have any furniture that belongs to me. That's one of my New Year's resolutions, actually, is next year I'm going to buy furniture. But up until now, I really haven't had anything big like that that's belonged to me. And it's not that I don't have any money to buy it. It's that I would much rather spend my money on vacations and doing things that I like to do than buying expensive furniture. It's definitely a subject that comes up that, oh, you bought tickets to a cruise next year? You didn't buy a bed yet? And I'm like, no, that's not important to me. What's important to me is that I get to travel the world and that I get to see different parts of the United States and that I get to spend time in the Bahamas with my friends. That's way more important to me than having a $3,000 bed, So that's definitely something that hits home for me, and that I've kind of learned the hard way to not share that kind of stuff with people, especially how much money you make and how much money that you have in savings and all those kinds of things. It's nobody else's business, and their opinion about how you live your life shouldn't matter. Setting boundaries around money and finances, it's pretty easy for me because I just don't talk about it. The less said, the better. Okay, something else that's important to set boundaries around is emotions. This one is especially important for INFJs because we are so sensitive and we have such strong emotions. It's really, really easy for us to take on other people's emotions, to take on their stresses, their problems, especially when it comes to our friends or our family members fighting. In that situation, the first thing that we usually want to do is to get in the middle of it and to try and solve it. But that can be a very slippery slope. So it's important for us to have a clear set of boundaries of this is what I'm going to do, this is what I'm going to get involved in this situation. The next one is how people treat you. I've read something recently that says you'll teach people how to treat you, and it's so incredibly true. For us as INFJs, a lot of us are big people pleasers, and we want to do everything for everybody. That means that we take on more work at home than we should. We take on more work at work than we should. We go out of our way to do things for people who may not really even care about us that much. And this is why it's so important to have boundaries around how people treat you so that you don't end up doing all of those things, and so that you teach people how to treat you the right way so that you know for yourself that you're not going to accept anything less than what you deserve. You're not going to accept people who don't treat you with respect, or people who are passive aggressive, or even something that seems like it's small, like somebody who interrupts you while you're talking. That can turn into something that's incredibly huge, because if they won't even let you finish a thought, they won't even let you finish your sentence, how can they take the time to hear what you're trying to say and to even consider it rather than just dismiss it and go with what they want to do, right? Okay, so the next thing is people making comments. Now, this kind of pertains to everything else that we talked about. But when I say people making comments, I think about comments like, oh, you're so sensitive, or you're so quiet. Or maybe there's somebody in your life who makes comments about how you look. Maybe they make comments that you've gained weight or you've lost weight, and that's not something that you want to talk about. Maybe you have somebody who makes comments about how you dress. I know that I do. My older sister has told me for years that I don't know how to dress myself, which is kind of interesting because I get up every single day and I get dressed every single day. So for her telling me I don't know how to dress myself, it's like, well, I have all evidence to the contrary. Maybe it's not how you would dress yourself, but I put on clothes every day and I'm completely fine with the way that I look. Maybe it's people making comments about what you eat. For me, this one is kind of a pain point because I'm a vegetarian and I'm not like a preachy, judgy vegetarian. It's just that that's how I choose to eat. And I've always been a vegetarian my whole life. So there's always been somebody telling me that I'm unhealthy, that I'm going to die early, that, I don't get the proper vitamins and nutrients and all these things. And that's always just been something that I've brushed off because it's like, okay, that's your opinion. It's not my opinion. And it's okay that it's not my opinion. But as I've gotten older, I've set more boundaries around that because I know that there's more information out there available now that supports the way that I eat. And I don't want to hear it from people. I don't want to get into the debate or discussion. If people want to hear about how I eat and why I eat that way, then I'm more than happy to share it with them. But if they only want to hear about it just to try and tear me down over it or tell me how wrong I am, then I just shut them down. Like, nope, I'm not going to do that. I'm not interested in debating with you about it. Something else is comments about how I drive. If you have a significant other, I'm sure that there's a lot of comments about that. But there's something else that my sister does or did to me is every time we would get in the car together, she would make comments. And it's just something now that I don't accept. My niece. I love my niece. I love her to death. She's one of my best friends. But bless her heart, she used to get in my car and make comments about how I drive. And I would look at her and be like, listen, you are 13 years old. You do not know how to drive a car. Shh. Do not tell me how to drive. You don't even know what you're talking about. So just stop. It's a little bit more difficult now because she's 16, so she kind of does know what she's talking about. But still, it's like, you know what? If you want to drive, you drive. Otherwise, be quiet. Play with the radio or look at your phone. And then anything else on this list would be something that you have a pain point about. One of the big things that I have a pain point about is I like to go to concerts. And the only concerts that I go to are from my favorite boy band. And anytime I tell somebody about that, they start with comments. They start, with things like, I can't believe you waste your money on that. How much money do you spend on it? And then it's, oh my God, those guys are so old. Why would you go watch them in concert? They don't even sing. And whatever else it may be, whatever else that they can come up with that they think is funny or some kind of dig at the band or, whatever. But for me, I set a lot of boundaries around that because I don't want to hear it. I don't care what anybody else thinks about it. It's not my truth. So I've just learned not to let people say those things. Two other things that I put on this list of setting boundaries around that are incredibly important, especially this time of year when you're spending a lot of time with your family, people that you don't usually see a lot maybe, are politics and religion. These are volatile subjects. These are very, very slippery slope to go down because so many people have such differing opinions about both of them that it's very easy to get into a very difficult conversation and very easy to get hurt feelings. There's somebody actually that I work with who likes to bait people into political discussions, and he says things that are inflammatory just to get a rise out of people. Rather than have an intelligent debate, he wants to argue and fight and make people mad. And it seems like a lot of people who talk about politics, at least the people that I know, it's like that's what they want. And for me, the best way that I've found to set boundaries around that is just not to engage in it. In fact, there are even times when I've gotten up from a table or a party or a conversation and just walked away because I don't discuss politics. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to hear your point of view, and I don't want to give you mine, and I don't want to argue about it. That's the best way that I've found for me to set boundaries around that, is to just say, nope, that's not happening. I'm not going to do it. And the last thing that I would encourage you to set boundaries around is anything that you feel is uncomfortable for you or anything that's damaging to your mental and or emotional health. So this list that I gave you is things that I found that I feel like are incredibly important for me, but your list could be a lot different. But I would encourage you to pick out anything that makes you uncomfortable, anything that you don't like when people bring up, or anything that you feel like is damaging to your mental or emotional health. So how do you set boundaries in a healthy way? This is what we're all interested in, right? How do we do this? The first thing is to be okay with not explaining yourself. Remember that no is a complete sentence. You don't have to explain to people why you're choosing not to engage with them or why you're saying, no, I can't do that right away. It doesn't have to be a discussion. In fact, it shouldn't be a discussion. You should be able to say no and have them respect that. It's also important for you to be sure of your decisions and your boundaries. Make sure that you know the reason why you're drawing a boundary there so that you don't have to share your reasons. You know why, and that's what's important. Remember that people will only understand to their level of understanding. They're not going to understand the same way that you do. And also remember that it's a process of learning how to say no and when to say no. But it's also important for you to be specific about what you need and make sure that you're clear and direct when you tell people no. So some examples of that would be, please do not read my journal. I feel violated when my privacy is disrespected. Another example is, I would love to hear about your day. I'll be able to give you my full attention in about 10 minutes. And the last example is, if you put your dirty clothes in the hamper by 10 o'clock on Sunday morning, I will be happy to wash them for you. So when you're setting boundaries, when you're communicating them to those that you love, or your friends, or the people that you work with, there are a few things to remember. Make sure that you be assertive. That doesn't mean that you're loud or mean, but just make sure that you're firm and polite at the same time. Be clear with your needs and be clear with what your boundaries are. So an example of that is, I don't appreciate people making comments about what I eat. Or just simply saying, I don't discuss politics. Can we talk about something else? Make sure that when people challenge you, that you reaffirm your position, that you don't back down. Because as soon as you back down, you've undone all of the work that you've worked so hard to accomplish up to that point. If they won't let it go, there are a few options that you have. You can always try and change the subject. If the people that you're speaking to are polite, they'll get the hint and move on. If they're not, you can always walk away. And I know that this one is a lot easier said than done, especially if you're in the middle of a family dinner, if it's Christmas dinner and that uncle that you have that you rarely see is sitting next to you and the only thing he wants to talk about is politics. It's not easy to stand up and walk away. But I guarantee you that if you take a stand like that people will notice. And hopefully they'll be there to support you rather than to say negative things to you. And the last thing that you can do is just to not engage with them. You have a choice as well. And I know that it's difficult to sit there and listen to the things that they have to say, but you don't have to respond to them. Even though they're trying to bait you into a conversation or they're demanding that you respond, you don't have to respond. Another thing to remember is try not to be too emotional. Try not to get defensive with people, especially when it comes to them crossing boundaries. Rather than overreacting and throwing a huge fit, try to remember that you have as much control as they do. And they'll be a lot more reasonable if you stay calm as well. I think, too, that's one of the things that I'm learning as I get older, that it's a whole lot easier to just not engage with people and to not get so emotional about things rather than being really upset and, feeling it in your soul, which is so easy for us as INFJs to do. It's something that I've done for the longest time. It's so much easier just to be like, okay, cool. Whatever. I'm not going to argue with you. I'm not going to try and make you see things the way that I do. And I'm not going to explain my position either. If you want to believe that, or you want to feel that way, or, even if it's something that's like, if you want to believe that about me, that's fine. You believe whatever you want to believe. I know that that's a lot easier said than done as well, but I found that the more that you do it, the easier that it gets. And it's not easy trying to keep your own emotions in check. It's also not easy trying not to get overwhelmed by other people's emotions. Because when you're setting boundaries, people are going to get angry. They're going to be upset. At the very least, they're going to be uncomfortable because you're telling them no when so many times before you've said yes. But again, this goes back to your why. Make sure that you know exactly what your why is and that you keep that in mind every time you have to tell somebody no. And remember that maintaining your boundaries is a whole lot easier than setting new ones. And like I said, it's difficult at first. It's going to be difficult, especially when people are so used to not respecting your boundaries, when people are so used to you not having any boundaries at all to begin with. But the more that you maintain them, the more that you keep saying this is what we're doing, the more that you keep saying no, the easier that it will get. All right, well, that's all that I have to say about boundaries. I really hope that this information helps you and that you're able to start setting more boundaries in your life. It will do you so much good. Like we spoke about, you set a standard for how people treat you. You tell them what you will accept every time that you accept whatever it is from them. And the more that you set healthy boundaries, the better sense of yourself that you're going to have. They'll help you with so many things, like being able to differentiate between your feelings and other people's feelings, which for us as INFJs is so important. Every single decision that you make will help you design the life that you want to have. And I know that for me, I want to look back a month from now, 6 months from now, a year from now, 10 years from now, and know that I made decisions every single day that helped me design the life that I want to live and not just accepted what other people told me that I should do. I want to make decisions that help protect my health and well-being. And I want to feel empowered because every time that you tell somebody no, every time that you set a boundary and you put yourself first, it will help empower you to say no the next time. It'll help empower you to do the next thing that you want to do. And instead of feeling lost and helpless, it will help you have that feeling of being powerful and knowing that you're doing what's best for you. And like I said, it'll help you to make the next decision and the next one. And it's really the little things that eventually will help you find that control in your life. Okay, so I have a story that I want to read to you, and this one is from Lizzie in Canada. And she says, "Hello, my name is Lizzie. I'm 23 years old and I just moved to Montreal 6 weeks ago. Living in Canada has been my dream since I was 16 and now here I am. I love your Instagram. Your posts mean a lot to me. It's great to see that there is someone who feels the same. I know I should be happy now. My dream has come true, but I'm not. I haven't been happy for a long time. Years ago, I changed schools because it gave me nothing. I started to study another field. I wanted to become a teacher. I worked during my studies. I wanted independence. Everything went great. I finished school a few weeks later and I got a work visa for Canada. I had to break up with my boyfriend because of that, but the relationship didn't go anywhere anyway. Now I'm here in Montreal. Everything should be fine, but it's not. I can't get rid of the feeling of emptiness. I tried everything I like to do, taking walks in nature, alone time, listening to music, watching movies, or reading historical documents. Nothing calms me down. Today I heard a song on the radio, I Want to Be Like Other Girls, and I cried. And at that moment, I realized that's the problem. I've never had someone to understand me. Since I left school, I ended contact with all my former classmates. Mostly they said they didn't understand me and I'm fine without them. I have 3 people that I really trust, or trust the most, and that's more than enough for me. But I still don't tell them everything. I really never had someone whom I thought would not be afraid of betrayal, hurt, and abandoned. Sometimes I have bad thoughts. What if I didn't find anyone like that? Will I be alone forever? I know that the someone is out there, but at the time I needed support, there was no one here for me. And I'm scared. When I was 17, I was diagnosed with depression, panic disorder, and social anxiety disorder. When I was 20, I tried to commit suicide. I just want to sleep was all I could think of. Since then, a lot of things have changed and improved, but a few days ago, I had a bad feeling of loneliness, misunderstanding from others, and the constant pretense of being someone else. Have you found someone who understands you and accepted you for who you are? Thank you for your Instagram account. You are amazing. Your posts help me every day. Yours sincerely, Lizzie. Lizzie, thank you so much for your story. My heart was breaking as I was reading it, and I've kind of let it sit in my inbox for a couple of weeks because I really wasn't sure how to answer your question. I understand so much of what you said because I felt the same way. I, too, was diagnosed with depression and a social anxiety disorder. And I, too, know what it feels like to not have anybody that I really trust completely and 100% and am able to share everything with them that I want to. It really hits me hard this time of year especially because this is the season where most people spend time with their friends and family. And for me, I don't have a family of my own. So I find myself feeling more lonely during this time than throughout the rest of the year. I really want to sit here and tell you that yes, I have found that someone who understands me completely and who I can share everything with. But the truth is, for me, it hasn't happened yet. And a lot of people tell me that my expectations are way too high when it comes to finding that special person. But I have to believe that's not true. I have to believe that there is somebody out there who is meant just for me, somebody that I can talk to and connect with. Because I know for me, I just can't live in a world where that's not true. I have to have that hope. So as much as I want to sit here and say, I have all the answers and this is exactly what you need to do, I don't, unfortunately. But I can tell you that I do have hope that someday that it will happen. And in the meantime, I'm doing everything that I can every single day to ward off the depression and anxiety. And I definitely want to encourage you to do whatever that you have to do to ward off those as well. And I really hope that you have a counselor that you're speaking to because I know that that helps a lot. And I hope as well that you can fight past the stigma of speaking to a counselor, of going to see your doctor, and that you're doing all of the things to care for yourself that you can do. Because even though it feels bad now, I assure you that it will get better, that this too shall pass, and there is something better for you out there. I promise. Okay, so I have a couple of reviews that I want to read to you as well. Some things that people have sent to me, and I wanted to share them with you because I thought they were completely amazing. The first one is from Tanya on Instagram, and she says, I can't begin to tell you how grateful I am for finding your account today. I've spent literally hours reading through your posts here and your blog. For the past few weeks, I've been going through a lot of signs that I need to come back to myself. You have helped me in more ways than you'll ever know. I haven't felt this understood in a while. And the next one is a review that somebody left on Apple Podcast, and it says, definitely love listening to this podcast. Keep it going. It's helpful to know that I can be a mess and me at the same time, and that's beautiful. I found this podcast the other day, and I'm so excited to listen. From the very first episode, I knew my heart was full of love and excitement, knowing that I am not alone in my journey as an INFJ. This podcast will be a bit of everything. Fun facts, hope, encouragement, and learning about ourselves as INFJs on a deeper level. Can't wait for upcoming episodes. Thank you so much for sending me these things. If you love the podcast too, please leave a review. You can leave one on Apple Podcast or wherever you listen to the podcast. It helps other people to be able to find us. Also, if you have a story that you'd like to share, I would love to hear from you. I would especially love to hear anything that you have about New Year's resolutions. You can send them to podcast@infjwoman.com, or you can send me a direct message on Instagram or Facebook @infjwoman. That's all that we have for the show today. Thank you so much for listening. I really, really appreciate it. And I hope that you have a good week. We'll see you again next week.